What was Brooklyn King Radio? It was pirate radio frequency 1002.96. It was raw. It was crazy. It wasn't hood. It was neighborhood. See, if it was going down in New York City or any of the 5 boroughs, we were on it. Before there were podcasts, there was Shoutcast Radio. Before there was iTunes, there was Winamp and LimeWire. And before there was anything called the Breakfast Club, there was already a show in New York with 2 crazy guys and 1 woman keeping it all together. These are the archives of Brooklyn King Radio, the wildest show that you never heard of.
But Clash of the Titans was hot. Clash of the Titans made my fucking day, man. My imagination just soared with that shit. Because that got me, Clash of the Titans got me into mythology and mess, man.
Good movie.
Yeah.
Great fucking movie.
It was a story of a young dude named Perseus. All right, Perseus was the hero. Perseus was actually Zeus's son. Now, Zeus was the king of the fucking gods. He was the man. But Zeus had a fucking extreme problem. Zeus used to always be sticking his dick in these bitches. That's what he liked to do. Zeus would go down to the fucking planet Earth and fuck these bitches. That's why that nigga always had like a toga on. A lot of times you would see that motherfucker with just a blanket straight on. That motherfucker would go right down to Earth and lift his fucking blanket up and pop a cock in these bitches and shit and squirt a load on them and get them pregnant. He had kids all over the place. Perseus was one of them. The thing is about Zeus though was that nigga was married. And Hera, who was his wife, she knew full well about the shit that motherfucker used to be doing. So every time that nigga had a fucking kid, she go out her way to try to kill that shit. You don't believe me? Watch Hercules. Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, same shit. Yo, if it ain't one thing trying to kill Hercules, it's something else. And why? Because Hercules is Zeus's son from another fucking woman and shit. And Hera just trying to kill that motherfucker. But Zeus was the fucking king of the gods and shit. In his spare time, he just sits back and shit, relaxes, fucks with man and shit, and when he got nothing else better to do, he releases the Kraken. Now the Kraken is this big piece of shit creature and shit in the sea. As soon as he see man getting too big for his britches, it could be me and Shy outside talking. You know what, Shy? I think I want to start worshiping another god. Up! Release the Kraken. So I start talking that shit like I want to worship something else other than Zeus, gotta release the Kraken. He would come out to sea, fuck me and Shy up and all our family and our fucking village, then leave like ain't nothing happened. That's what we get for talking that bullshit. That's what Zeus liked to do. But that's what the Kraken was. You'll hear more about that motherfucker later. But let's get back to Perseus. Now Perseus' whole shit, as he got older, he wanted to fuck this bitch Andromeda. Andromeda was this bad looking bitch, boy. She was fine, all right? And he was a virgin. Yup. Untouched. Exactly. Back then when it meant something to be a virgin. Back then, in those fucking mythological days, if you was a virgin and they sacrificed your ass, you had like at least 3 fucking years of good crops. That's what would happen if you was a fucking virgin. But anyway, he went to Andromeda's mom. Listen, I want to fuck your daughter. Okay, well check it out, Perseus. What you have to do is you got to do this shit for me. I need you to get the head of Medusa. And I need you to get the ring of Calibus. I think that's what his name was. The ring of fucking Calibus. And I need you to get the winged horse Pegasus. So Perseus is like, good God, I can't do all this shit. But here go his pops. His pops want to help him. So what did he do? He gave him some fucking funky ass armor and shit, a helmet that made him invisible, an armor that was unbreakable and can be used as a mirror, and he gave that motherfucker a fucking big ass cock. So Perseus is off. The first thing he had to do was get Pegasus. Pegasus was a winged horse, all right, but the motherfucker was wild. So that motherfucker had to go tame Pegasus. Once Pegasus was tamed, that motherfucker went off to go get the head of Medusa. Now Medusa was a bad bitch. Medusa was a Gorgon. Now, on a mythological side note, because I read this shit a lot, the Gorgon sisters, it was 3 of them, okay? But they used to all be beautiful women. And the thing was, people started sweating them bitches so much, all right, that the guys got angry at them bitches. So the guys cursed them. They made them have a hair of snakes and an ugly ass face that would turn you into stone. But the guys gave them bitches a fat ass and big titties and shit. All right, they never forget that shit. The shit is hot. And when fucking Perseus went to Medusa, it's a whole bunch of niggas and shit already turned to stone. Because even though they know not to look at her face, they had to look at that bitch's ass. Cause her ass was fat, and soon as that motherfucker see her ass, she turn around, turn the niggas right to fucking stone. It was a wrap. All them motherfuckers just sitting up there and shit, got their dicks in their hands, turned to stone. Every single one of them. It was the worst sight Perseus saw in his fucking life, but he had to persevere. So that motherfucker went in there with a fucking shield and shit. That motherfucker went, set the shield up because he knew not to look directly in that bitch's face. So he said, fuck it, I'm gonna look at the shield and I'm gonna use a reflection to kill this bitch. That bitch started walking up toward that fucking shield and mess like that. I think how the fuck did he kill her?
Nah, he waited behind a pillar.
Oh yeah, and he cut that bitch's head off.
And he watched her through the shield. He watched the reflection. And she thought she had that nigga. She had the fucking arrow and shit ready.
Oh yeah, and she shot the arrow at the fucking mirror at the shield.
Arrow. That nigga waited for her. She walked up. That nigga chopped her head clean the fuck
Yup,
off.
that was it. That was it. It was a wrap.
It was a wrap.
Grab that bitch and mess like that, and then he made sure not to look at her head. Her blood was poisonous, and her bite was poisonous as well. But Perseus was curious. He took the head of Medusa and shit, and got a quick blowjob, squirted a load on that bitch's face and shit like that, and dumped her fucking head in the sack. All right, and he got the fuck out of there. And the last thing he had to do was get the hand of Calibus. Calibus was this fucked up looking dude and shit. He was basically like a troll looking nigga. He used to look like a regular dude, but he messed up and said something about the gods, and the gods cursed him. He made him look like my Aunt Barbara. All right. Oh shit.
Nah, you know why he cursed Calibus? Because Calibus was doing some fucked up shit to Andromeda. Calibus used to invade Andromeda's dreams and shit and fuck her.
Yeah.
And Andromeda was a virgin. She was untouched.
Yeah.
He was like, all right, we gonna curse this motherfucker.
You absolutely right.
Yeah, so then Zeus cursed that motherfucker.
You're absolutely right. He used to wake up, he used to sit there and actually blaze that bitch in her fucking sleep.
Yeah.
She wake up with fucking green shit all over her fucking face. All over her fucking face and shit, not knowing how it got there with glitter. All right? Simple as that, yo. That shit was fucking crazy. That shit was fucking crazy. Calibus was a fucking man. That nigga was dream raping bitches. If I could rape a bitch in her dream, I'd do that shit every night. All right? But that nigga Calibus did that shit. But Perseus got to his ass. Perseus was like, yo, this shit's gonna stop, nigga. Fuck the bullshit. And that nigga Calibus was like, get your ass out of here, nigga. That motherfucker had that fucking whip. He caught Perseus with that shit and whipped the shit out of him and made that nigga ran. All right, that nigga dropped that Medusa head. And that nigga was running off like a bitch and shit. But while he's running off, that nigga Calibus picked up the head of Medusa, stabbed that head and shit, and all the blood trickled out and shit, and the blood turned to scorpions. That nigga Perseus had to fight them shit. Giant scorpions. Meanwhile, this motherfucker Calibus chilling like a motherfucker, laughing at that nigga. But Perseus fought the motherfuckers with a magical sword, and he killed them. And him and Calibus fought, and he chopped that nigga hand off him, man. Took the hand back, took the head back, took Pegasus back, and rode off into the fucking sunset back to Andromeda's mother. Presented the hand, the horse, Medusa's head and shit, and that was it. It was all good. Andromeda was about to be married to Perseus and mess, but there was one more problem. It was Hera. Hera was mad because Perseus was happy. I told y'all Hera can't stand Zeus's kids. So she got upset and made somebody release that fucking Kraken. So now the Kraken was going to destroy the whole city. There was no hope except for Perseus. Perseus got on the winged fucking horse and shit, Pegasus, went to the fucking Kraken, pulled the fucking head out of the sack, which was Medusa. Medusa's head could turn anything into stone. Kraken looked at that shit. Medusa looked at him, and that was it. And the whole Kraken turned into stone and dropped into the fucking sea. It was over. The village was saved. Andromeda was fucked that night and shit, man. They had Medusa head. They put a fucking candle on that shit and mess like that. Medusa's head was the shit. Calibus was missing a hand, drinking brandy. I can't believe this shit. Everybody's happy and shit. And meanwhile, Zeus is someplace else fucking another bitch, making another little kid and shit called Hercules, which is another story. That was Clash of the Titans, which was a motherfucking classic, man. Fuck the bullshit. You got another movie for me, Shy? You got any one?